It's no secret that people like watching true crime shows, documentaries about serial killers, and or listening to podcasts about gruesome shenanigans. It's something that you don't see every day, something that you can't stop looking at. It stimulates our fight or flight responses in our monkey brains, which is why you can't stop looking or listening. It's fascinating stuff, to some of us at least. Anyways, to us, it's captivating, and we wanted to delve deeper down the rabbit hole and study these serial killers. Why do they do what they do? What experiences have they gone through? Do they show similar traits? What is their thought process? It's all a bunch of questions that we wanted to figure out. Anyways, to sum it up, we wanted to explore how a person's social environment and mental health can create or enhance traits found in numerous serial killers, like lack of empathy, egocentrism, poor impulse control, and antisocial behavior. The concept of serial killing is relatively new historically for humans. The concept of serial killing has been around for approximately 400 to 500 years. Serial killing is distinctly a modern phenomenon because of recent social and cultural changes. The earliest recorded serial killer in the United States was in the 1890s. His name was H. Holmes, and he allegedly tortured small animals and was beaten by his father. But I digress. The issue with serial killers is not the fact that they exist, but the fact that we don't fully understand how a person becomes one. Of course, there are many different factors, but finding common ground between them can help us recognize, treat, and prevent anyone from developing or enhancing such traits found in killers. Finding commonalities in serial killers' timelines from birth into childhood and then into adulthood can help us recognize patterns in early development. When those patterns and traumas are identified, individuals can be helped. We think that nobody is born a serial killer, that traits and tendencies heavily rely on social upbringing and their environment. It all starts with abuse. I know that sounds awful, but it's a commonality that we have found through studies. A study posted on Crime Travel by Mitchell and Emmett focused on incidents of child abuse and serial killers, and the conclusion was startling. Compared to the general population, the rate of child abuse in some way, shape, or form is much more prevalent in children who later become killers. For example, Eileen Wuornos became a serial killer from her line of work in the sex industry. She killed 7 men and claimed self-defense. In her adolescence, she was beaten, sexually abused, and even raped by her brother, grandfather, and friend of grandfather. She didn't get much help in her later years of life either. By the age of 15, she was thrown out of her home, started sex working, and lived in the woods with no roof over her head. She had to get by, and the only way she could was to meddle in some illegal acts. By 18, she had served her first time in jail and would continue to be detained multiple times for the rest of her life. The 7 times she was arrested, she was only visited by a psychiatrist once. The psychiatrist diagnosed her as mentally unstable. She was then later sentenced to death 4 days later.
We also read a case study that interviewed 7 different serial killers to increase knowledge of the dynamics of serial murder. They examined each perpetrator's background, how they viewed themselves, and how they viewed others in hopes for a possible correlation between their experiences. Of course, correlation doesn't equal causation, but it can lead us in the right direction for more research and more support systems. The conclusions of the study are, of course, to continue analysis, and that each of the 7 cases have different primary motives, drug alcohol abuse, criminal history, and whether or not they had psychopathic tendencies. Yet, while we read through each of these cases, 6 out of the 7 had extremely unstable upbringings, and the last one started using drugs heavily in their adolescence.
We're not sympathizing with killers, but it is crucial to know their stories, to study them, and better recognize issues that need to be addressed.
Social psychologists have theorized and identified possible reasons for aggressive behavior in human beings and how these behaviors can lead to destructive behavior later on in life. Sigmund Freud believed that all human behavior originates from our eros, or the life instinct. We thought that frustration and aggression were inherently subconscious. This is known as the instinct theory of aggression. Later on, he revised this theory that there were 2 instincts. Eros was an instinct of life that encompasses positive portions of life, and Thanatos was the opposite, where aggression to the self and others is instinctually through risky behavior. Of course, Freud isn't an excellent source of psychological theories, but still, this theory led many other psychologists to interpret and study aggressive behavior, not only in serial killers, but the whole of the human psychology. Such psychologists like John Dollard went on to theorize the frustration-aggression hypothesis. This hypothesis states that aggression is the result of blocking a person's efforts to attain a goal. Frustration could cause aggressive behavior and, of course, action. If you ever got stuck on like one specific section of a video game, I wouldn't be too surprised if you got a bit angry. Bringing this back to serial killers, there's the possibility that their aggressive behaviors were enhanced due to the unfair circumstances within their environment, whether through childhood or into adulthood. One of the most influential theories related to aggression is the concept of modeling. The social learning theory states that people learn from other people's actions. Albert Bandura initially researched his hypothesis with Neil Miller and John Dollard in the 1940s. They did an infamously controversial experiment to show that children imitate behaviors, attitudes, and emotional stability from modeling individuals. The research concluded that when children are exposed to aggressive behavior that's been praised, they were more apt to act similarly aggressive or even more so. In terms of abuse, children could learn violent behavior from abusive parental figures who may act abusive to them or other loved ones. Of course, many factors can enhance specific traits to aggressive behavior. These theories of aggressive behavior can be connected to similar behaviors that serial killers exhibit. With these theories in mind, we have tried to develop specific interventions to help these issues. We wanted to think about the bigger picture and formulate particular ideas that might make a massive difference in our society to help and deal with individuals in need. We talked about jail reformation, like better food, housing, care, and a more welcoming environment. We thought of making therapy more accessible to the general public. However, there are insurance issues, and the only way a person will seek mental health guidance is if they know they need it or if they can afford it. Therapy is expensive. As much as we are a leading country for mental health awareness, the US capitalistic society makes it difficult for the less fortunate to obtain any sort of mental health consultation. Most issues start from early development, so we thought a good solution for the problem is to make a mandatory system that actively seeks out issues in kids at public schools. Our plan consists of many different vantage points. Right now, most public schools have the roles of academic advisors and counselors as one job. Better child support means better staff that take the initiative. Separating those roles will create new jobs for staff that specifically fixate children's well-being from home and school. 3 significant parts form our little triangle of support. The part of counselors will serve as quote unquote free therapy for students. Every student will be required to have a counselor and are welcome to change counselors if they don't see them as the perfect fit. This role for staff will act as an educator for mental well-being, betterment of the self, and an active support system for at-home matters. Students will be required to consult with their counselors at least once a year, but are more than welcome to set up an active schedule if they wanted to or need to. We also had the idea of a counselor to student body ratio depending on how many students attend the school system. Some kids are needier than others, so the idea of 10 counselors having 100 kids or so each is more than reasonable for a school that is quite massive. Academic advisors will sort of stay the same as they usually are. Their main goals are to help the student with their grades and future classes to help them succeed. Advisors are to report to counselors if they are suspicious of any odd situations with the student, ranging from random depleting grades or class skipping, but are only allowed to do so if they inquire the student's teachers about their behavior in class. Basically, it's just a massive triangular support system that actively searches and supports students. I like to call it the Reformation Proclamation. Very formal, I know. Am I proud of it? A little bit. Are there minor flaws in it? Yes, but I think it's an excellent first draft of an idea. Also, can we just fund our education system a bit more, please? We brought up these ideas to multiple local organizations. One of the organizations we focused on speaking with was Launch Michigan. They are an unprecedented partnership of numerous smaller organizations that focus on reforming the education system in Michigan. These smaller organizations range anywhere from businesses, philanthropists, and even just parents. Their collective goal is to make a high-quality, student-centered system that helps students succeed, not just in school, but in their future careers and life skills. These goals range from better teachers, classroom environments, and mental health recognition. The other organization we looked to was oriented explicitly towards better mental health for children and young adults. The Ethel and James Flynn Foundation was established in 1976 by Ethel Flynn, who had the goal of bettering research into the treatment of nervous and mental disease. She intended to remember her parents' trust documents to consolidate and direct their philanthropy to Michigan society. Ethel was always interested in children's health and decided to volunteer for the Red Cross during the Second World War. She was also a lifelong member of the Board of Trustees for Children's Hospitals in Michigan, so her passion for the betterment of human health has stuck with her for most of her life. Overall, since most of the research conducted states that a large percentage of serial killer-like behaviors are enhanced through abuse and the lack of support, our idea of bettering child support through public schools quite possibly help the futures of these children and would allow them to get the help that they need at an early age. With better mental health, not just to kids, but to young adults as well, rates of shootings, burglaries, drug usage, and the percentage of manslaughter could quite possibly decrease. We would be able to better understand urges and mental disease by helping and studying behaviors. That's all for now. Thanks for taking the time to watch us. Any supplemental information will be down in the description of this video, as well as sources from the research. Thank you again.